Welcome to the Unstoppable Product Pioneer Podcast, the podcast for business and product leaders ready to turn vision into execution and misalignment into momentum. I'm Tamar Stoltz, and I'm on a mission to help you create clarity, streamline execution, and drive meaningful results. In each episode, I sit down with industry experts who share their insights, lessons, and wins, giving you the tools and strategies you need to turn alignment into your superpower. It's time to own your expertise, lead with clarity, and become unstoppable. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Unstoppable Product Pioneer Podcast. So excited to be back with you today with another awesome episode. Today, we have a very special guest, and I'm going to bring him on. Here we go. Welcome to Pete Connor, who is a CX director and AI strategist. And I am so super honored and excited to have him with us today. Welcome, Pete. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Been looking forward to it.
Awesome. Okay, amazing. Can you hear me well? Because I'm not hearing it. Okay, fantastic. Amazing. It's like when tech works, it's great. And when tech doesn't work, it's really not great.
Very true.
Okay, so the title of today's episode, super exciting, Pete's Perpetual Product Pioneering Support Show. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Pete, do you wanna explain to us what is the story behind this awesome title? I'm assuming that it's gonna allude to your background and skills, and why don't you just share a little bit about yourself?
Well, I appreciate that. Well, to answer your first question, the genesis of this, it's kind of a funny story. We had a vendor at a healthcare organization that we worked with who was introducing a product that had a terrible interface. The product didn't work. It was not integrated well, wasn't scoped well, and we had multiple calls, and it was always Pete's team just needs to do this in order to make the software work. And there was a particular day where one of our executives was not really too happy with them. And he goes, I don't know who this Pete Steen guy is, but he has a lot to do. And after that thing, it became Pete's Problem, Pete Provider, Pete's Parlor, Pete's Problem. So it sort of took on a life of its own. And the team actually adopted different names for itself, of course, all starting with P. So it kind of became a bit of a habit. Yeah. So one of the challenges I've consistently faced has been making advanced AI technologies like prompting systems intuitive and accessible for everyday users. I feel like we hear about this daily to the point that we might fairly state that we're fatigued by it. I don't know that anybody really fully understands a lot of the concepts. I think there's more misinformation than there is help. But one of the things I'm focusing on is taking my master's degree in artificial intelligence and machine learning and conveying concepts to users in a very simple but helpful way. I'll give you an example. There's daily in your LinkedIn feed. Save these for your custom prompts. Write this down. Here's a cheat sheet. And daily, the font gets smaller and smaller. What I've created is a system that asks the user questions based on its own engineering without the user needing to learn a whole new topic. Some people don't want to learn how the watch is built to tell what time it is. Some of these applications are doing exactly that for them. And putting the user's experience first and their needs first, I think is a very important component to where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting. Wow. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Like, you mentioned some keywords here, UX, that's a big one, product. So how did it all start for you?
Great question. So my career started out with Bank of America. I started there as a management trainee and moved into the global corporate investment bank, where I used to review 10Ks and 10Qs all day long until I was cross-eyed. And one of the things that I realized very early on was that some people are extroverts and more skilled in their interface with other people, and that was not that role for me. So I moved into CX and matriculated through BPO, financial services, healthcare, for the last at least 12 years. 13 years, and SEO marketing and SaaS as well. And then I've been in the healthcare space for quite some time. The watershed moment for me was within the last 6 years when I started to learn Power BI, and I was in an environment where data was not available. And decisions were made based on intuition, hairs on the back of your neck, anecdotal, isolated incidents. And what I found was that by taking the CX experience and going back to my roots as an analyst, I'm able to blend uniquely, and I think in a way that not many people are able to. CX experience with understanding technology and data all together comes to a point, I think, where CX is impacted by AI, and now I understand it and how to read the data and how to interpret it.
Wow. Fascinating. It's so interesting to hear because it's like, I feel like there's never a traditional way that people make their way into this field, in general, whether it's UX product, strategy. So it's just, it's interesting. And it's also really, it's cool to like discover how different, backgrounds and professions can use the same type of skills, just like channeled a little bit differently, and provide value in so many different ways. So that's really awesome.
Definitely. I agree.
Super cool. Okay. So we talk about AI a little bit, right? And it's definitely one of these, buzzwords. I'm never into like the buzzword, right? Or like the latest, because at the end of the day, like sometimes when things are referred to as like a buzzword, I just feel like, well, then what happens like when the buzz dies down? But AI is a tool and it's here to stay, and it's really powerful and has so many incredible benefits and, positive attributes. Obviously it's a tool, so it could be used for the good or for the bad. But I would love to hear like just some of your thoughts around, user experience, AI, how do they, fit together, just in general, like when it comes to UX, what your, feelings of how to blend these two together strategically.
Yeah, I love that question. Let me just take you back to where I started to feel strongly about this. 2023, I was speaking at the CCW event in Vegas, and the rumblings of AI were everywhere. Every vendor wanted to buy me a cup of coffee. So now I know what it feels like to be a pretty girl that people won't leave alone, that just want 5 minutes of my time, right? So, hey, can I buy a cup of coffee and tell you about my solution? And it's a great product. You're going to love it. Completely backwards. So my speech was very simple. Artificial intelligence is a tool and an augmentation of the human experience. It is not a replacement. It will not replace anybody. It's nowhere close to a space where it can replace anybody. So I think the first thing we need to understand is that it's very young, and it's a technology that is not really well understood. So the human experience requires empathy and passion. And what we're going to see is automation of the routine and a focus on the meaningful. So, for example, if you have to call and ask what somebody's hours are, or what time do you close, what's your address, are you open on Saturday? Those kinds of things are simple. But we're in a place right now where some vendors are advancing a agenda that it can do more than it can, right? It is directionally accurate, but it is not 100% accurate. And I think that's important to keep in mind. And also, when we say AI, we're talking about a lot of different things. It's kind of like ChatGPT. ChatGPT catches a lot of heat for anything that's AI because they're the innovators. You'll notice on LinkedIn, users say, if you automate with ChatGPT, you're terrible, and here's why. But LinkedIn offers the featured functionality to generate content artificially, but not once have I ever seen that. So I think nomenclatures matter, speaks to the lack of understanding, but I think it's a multifactorial. I am a little concerned about some of the proclamations about what it can do versus what reality is. So I would say two things in summary. It's an augmentation. It'll allow you to focus on meaningful encounters and remove the mundane.
I love that. I love that. I was writing as you were saying this, and it's, for those of you who are listening or watching and have been, know very well that I'm very much focused on walking away with practical, actionable, guidance, inspiration, templates, resources. And I often, will invite you to go get a pen and write things down. And so that's what I just had, one of those moments where I was like, okay, automation of routine and focus on the meaningful. That is gold. Like, that is really gold. That just sums it up in such an awesome way.
Well, let me give you another one. That's a big piece of gold. I'll give you a little small piece of silver, right? We talk about artificial intelligence. Why don't we call it authentic intelligence? Let's look at it from a different perspective. There's nothing artificial about it. Authenticity matters, right? I'm always like, I don't know about you, but I'm going to be me and I'm going to show up as myself, right? It's important. But intelligence that's authentic will be more meaningful than intelligence that's just artificial, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And now I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. So just, playing devil's advocate here. You say authentic intelligence, right?
Yeah.
So authenticity is one of the biggest, what's the word? Like character traits, I guess, of like when I describe like my core values and who I am as a person, I always use the word authentic because it's something that I was given as a gift, absolutely. But it's something that I also very much appreciate in others. And I will not take a job or like have anything to do with something that I feel is just fake, dishonest, not real, not authentic. And so when you say authentic, right, so like my ears perk up because when it comes to AI, one of the things I've been noticing, which has been disappointing for me, is the fact that people are misusing it to take out the authenticity. And what I mean by that is when I see a post on LinkedIn where the person forgets to delete the last sentence from ChatGPT that says, feel free to customize this, right? And you're like, oh, you did not just do that. But how do we call that authentic intelligence when people are like really taking out their authentic touch and their like their self when they're not automating the routine, that they're trying to automate the meaningful, right? Like that I have such a hard time with.
All right. I agree with you. And I'm glad you bring this up because and anybody that's on LinkedIn knows exactly what you're talking about. But let me offer you a different perspective. Every day, your feed, if it's anything like mine, and mine is 58% promotional content, and I'll get to how I know that in a moment, but every day there is I can't believe how stupid you are because you're not automating these things. Automate your LinkedIn feed, automate this, and there's suggestions to adopt that process. More to the point, it's not just a suggestion, there's a detailed roadmap of how to do it. Taplio, for example. Taplio generates artificial comments and posts them for you without having to edit them. And it is encouraging you to have a volume game versus a value game. Combine that with the self-proclaimed influencers that are saying, do it this way, automate, save all this time. And then you've got folks that don't do either and they just copy paste. I mean, it's encouraged. It's a behavior that's being nurtured. And I don't know that it's right to be as harsh as we are on those that adopt it without full understanding. But that gets back to the original point. This is an augmentation, right? So I'll cop to this. I'll tell you that when I post LinkedIn content, I always personally want to have data, right? I use an AI algorithm to provide me data that's quantitative, qualitative, and I can reference. Here's a case study where this happened, because you see that a lot. Did you know 85% of CEOs wish that you worked at home? Great, where's the data? None, then it's an opinion. But I use an AI bot to obtain that. That doesn't mean I'm unauthentic. It just means I'm bringing, I think, a more comprehensive amount of content to the table. Now, I don't copy and paste it. I have to use the AI to organize it. And then I have set and used the AI to mimic, or I shouldn't say mimic, it should emulate my style. And again, this is not as hard as people think, but my framework is based on my AI's understanding of what I expect and what my messaging is. And it does get changed. And I think there's a difference between using it as your assistant and using it as your replacement. And I'll add this as well, because there's a lot of content and context around, I can detect it. My eye can tell you if you use a dash here, if you use this word here, and if you use this word here, it's AI. The data indicates Grammarly can only detect AI generated content 56% of the time, 56% of the time. So that begs the question, if the AI can't tell what's AI generated and it continues to get more advanced daily, how are all the social media influencers able to draw such measured conclusions? Perhaps they should train Grammarly, right? So the data behind what we're seeing is very different than the reality that's presented.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, that helps. That really helps. I mean, because that's the thing. Like, so when I saw it's funny you say Taplio. I'm a Taplio user. I have been very happy with it as a tool for me because of the dashboard at the top where it has all my analytics of the followers that I've gained, the posts that got the most engagement, because I'm at a point in my career where I just started my own business a few months ago. And so for me, it's been an incredibly helpful tool because I am trying to understand, as someone who's looking to gain a well, I don't like to say a following, more like meaningful connections, but because I'm also like a quality over quantity type of person. I'd rather have like a group of, 1,000 of my people and not like 50,000 random people. But it's been very helpful for me at this stage in my business to like get that high level overview. But like, I have never explored like automating comments on there. Like it never even like occurred to me because I think I'd be too afraid to trust, and again, I'm so happy with it. Like, I think it's a great tool, but like my own like personal trust, like I just wouldn't feel comfortable automating a comment through a software that like I don't even know what it says before it goes out. Now that's just me. I'm not putting down people who do that. Everyone does what works best for them. But like I do think that there are ways to utilize, a tool in ways that are, meaningful for you and align with, what you feel comfortable with and your values 100%. But I think like it definitely helps to hear your perspective of, there are ways that you can, like it is an augmentation, but again, like, and the point you bring about data, like I'm cracking up because some of the data that, like some of these posts that I'm reading, it's like, wow, that is awesome data. It's like,
Yeah.
Source.
Yeah.
No source.
Yeah, you're right. And that's interesting you should say that, because it dovetails into something I was trying to work. So your Taplio you're able to review it. You manage command and control of it because, like you said, you don't necessarily trust it. I wouldn't trust it either. I tried it, got rid of it. But I'm actually just about to post a very simple understanding of, just imagine for a moment, and specifically in your case, where your brand means a lot to you and your voice is measured and you want it to conform to a certain style and authenticity. The complexities of setting this up are so much more simple than most people believe. You can create a workflow that will emulate your persona, that will get you to a point where your voice is exactly what you're seeing. And I do mean exactly. There was in graduate school, I created a persona of Dr. J. Robert Oppenheimer. You remember who that was?
Yeah.
Okay. So I created his persona and mimicked his human engrams. Dr. Oppenheimer's persona was conversating with me and providing me parallels between the creation of the nuclear bombs and artificial intelligence, to the point where if you compared his statements to previous statements, they aligned almost identically. So you can actually control that a lot more than you think. And that extends to graphics, videos, audio, and content creation, which I think is pretty exciting. And I think it adds a little bit of that authenticity because the AI will get to know you first. I mean, Taplio did not ask you questions about your personality and about your brand. It lets you put them in. But imagine having a bi-directional conversation, right? And to take it a step further, you can make yourself the emulated interviewer and have a conversation with yourself so you're both on the same page and the results are ideal.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of things.
When did you do that?
When did I do that? The Oppenheimer?
Yeah.
Earlier this year, I did.
Wow.
I performed that. And there's a couple of custom GPTs I've dropped that have some sci-fi nerd references. For example, the HAL 9000 is a throwback to a really old movie that my dad showed me, but neither here nor there. You can adopt a persona and have your chat GPT perform as it's acting as someone else. And you can get that very dialed in. But the Oppenheimer experiment was something that was pretty mind-blowing.
Wow. That is fascinating.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's fun stuff.
It is. You know what? It's very interesting. I go back and forth with the whole thing, the whole like AI, like just this whole conversation, because it's very interesting. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My grandparents owned businesses. My dad owned a business, and I feel like I was raised in an environment of business strategy that was very much like, I don't know what's like the appropriate term to use, because it's not like the generation before, but I guess like as the next generation, I don't even know what I might consider Gen Z. I don't know. I'll leave that for all my listeners to figure it out. But I part of me is like the way I was raised and the values that I have, seeing some of the behaviors and like I don't know if it's the way that our society has become like instant gratification, the work ethic that is changing a little bit. You know, like for example, my grandmother was talking with me about like my job and my career, and she was just commenting, not in a bad way, but she was saying like it didn't used to be so common for people to jump around from job to job to job, like because they were not because they were being let go, but because they were just, you know, jumping, right? Mm-hmm. And like when I started out as a UX designer, like a lot of my colleagues had been through a lot of jobs, like short and so, you know, I remember being like told like, you know, years and years ago that could be a red flag if you're looking at a resume, which it still could be a red flag, right? If you see like 100, you know, different jobs, like in short amounts of time. But at the same time, like there is a little bit of a culture, you know, that has seeped into the society or to like our industry of instant gratification. And that if I'm not happy or if something is not working, like I don't have the patience to put in the work for it. It's fine. I'll go find a job somewhere else. They'll pay me more. It's fine. So like, you know, there's like disposable, like just some of these, you know, tendencies I feel like that have seeped in as technology is advancing and as we continue to create technology that really does encourage instant gratification and doesn't allow for a process or for the patients as much as it used to. You know, it's like sometimes like I do have to sit down and say, okay, like I learned about this new awesome tool, you know, that has AI integration or that is an AI tool completely. Like I do find myself having to ask myself, how does this align with my core values? Like as a person, like how does this, like, it's not just like a blanket, like AI, right? Like you said, you know, earlier, I think like that was just to your point before. It's really like important to remember that there's so many, like when you say AI, it's like saying technology, like it's just so broad in general. Like I do think that sometimes I don't give like my stamp of approval to, you know, to anything and everything. It's like I really find myself having to take each tool, you know, and really understand it and make sure that it's something that aligns with who I am, you know?
Yeah, that's a great point. And you know, I'm glad you say that because you're right. There's a lot of tools. But I would say two things. One, when it comes to job hopping and the perception of red flag, right? Who's really created that? Who created the problem that drove that as the solution? When companies, you know, our parents and our grandparents, they worked for the same company till they retired and got a gold watch. Companies don't give away gold watches anymore, right? They're not, the loyalty cuts both ways, right? So when companies say that they're family and their employees are like family does not fire and lay off employees in the middle of a holiday season. It's just a reality of it.
Right.
And when companies cap their average merit increases at under 5%, and your competitors are going to offer 15%, I mean, instant gratification or not, I'm still going to consider that, because this is not a charity endeavor, right? We all work for our families, right?
You don't have to be the sacrifice if there's another.
Yeah, exactly. And so you think about in the context of your entrepreneurial family, I'm sure you can remember plenty of times when dad was working late to keep the business going, right? Because that's what was required. But what if instead of looking at the tools available, take a time, travel back through time, which by the way is possible through one of my GPTs. So travel back in time and imagine that he was able to automate and provide his own definition of what the tool is. Instead of going to market looking for tools, you can create them yourselves with ease. And I know we're instant gratification, but that investment in time will free up time down the road, and you define your own tool instead of saying, does this meet with my values? How about define your values and then create the tool that suits you as an individual? And I think that matters, because you can free up time with your family. You can focus on the meaningful, again, not have to keep books, analyze the P&Ls and the balance sheet. If you could automate all those things, probably gets a couple hours back a week. And that, I think, it's just working smarter, not harder.
Absolutely.
That's just how I look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, I mean, when I say instant gratification, I think I'm more just like, as a society, it's like so my 4-year-old daughter, right? So like something's not working for her. It's unbelievable to see how it's like a switch. It's like, this doesn't work. I'm done. This is not exactly, okay, next thing. It's like, we're on to the next thing. It's like, one second. Let's take a deep breath.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Can we solve the problem? Sometimes she's right. Like, it could be something, something breaks in it. But like, sometimes I have to remind her, it's like, because things are so instantaneous today, it's like, 1 second, with just a little bit of patience, we could get this to work, Yeah. Like, so that when I say instant gratification, I guess that's what I mean, like not necessarily, to be able to, oh my goodness, looking back, of course, my father, it's unbelievable. I mean, my father, everyone knows that, like, he's like one of my biggest role models in life. And he was not always, I mean, he was not just hardworking, but like, he was the CEO and owner of a company. He has 150 employees. Like, there were many opportunities that he could have taken to take off or to come join us on a family vacation, or like, he had every reason to be able to do it. And he didn't. He was there in the trenches, working, doing whatever it took, like, even though, and so I know that's like a unique quality. I know that that's not always a given. But I think that work ethic and the loyalty that he had, and I think that ultimately that's why, I mean, his company had an unbelievable culture as a family, because when you see that the CEO is part of the family the same way that you are, then you want to, be part of that. But I think that there were so many opportunities where, he definitely could, if he would have had the tools that we have today, maybe he, not maybe, for sure. I'm sure there was like more busy work that, could have been done that would have been, working smarter and not harder, 100%. And when it's smarter, not harder, and it's like honest and right, amazing. That's a win,
right.
Yeah.
Inspirational leader. It's a time that we should never have let get away from us. But yeah, it sounds like a real amazing culture and a great leader.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, I want to quickly focus on, just, sharing some thought, resource, tool, framework, idea. I like to try to focus, like, the last part of the podcast on something that we can give to our listeners, that empowers them to, keep going, to make change, to step into their power, right? Own their expertise, step into their power, and, just take something practical, tangible away. I know for myself, I've been taking notes. I have so many things that I wrote down, so many valuable gems from this, but, we might have to do a podcast 2.0 now.
awesome.
We can talk all day, but
We'll call it GPT. That's the next one.
That's awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So what, I don't know, just like wrapping things up, what are, just some things that come to mind, message that you want to give to the listeners about everything we talked about today?
Let's start with LinkedIn, since everybody's so puppy dogs and ice cream on there right now, right? So I'm real happy to announce this. There's a venture capital group that's going to fund this tool. It's not going to cost people anything at all. I created the LinkedIn analytics tool for a couple of reasons. When you scroll through your feed, half of it is noise. And that's why the instant gratification culture is there, because you're hammered with noise all day long. You just, it's nonstop. Hey, how are you doing? I'm following up on all this just fluff, right? So the first thing the LinkedIn analytics tool is going to do, it's going to give you something that the premium doesn't. It's going to tell you in your feed, what kind of content are you getting hit with? That's how I'm able to tell you how much promotional is there. And then it's going to allow you to apply a filter to opt out of the advertisements that LinkedIn won't let you. And it's also going to let you, as a user, control the algorithm that LinkedIn says that you're not grown up enough to manage on your own. And then the algorithm debate gets in there. So now you can start to classify content. I don't want to hear about this. I don't want to hear about this. And I don't want to hear about this. I want my feed to be meaningful and subtract the obvious. And you'll have more control over what is in your feed. Secondly, it's going to tell you within your feed what the engagement ratio is. And spoiler alert, the promotional content gets no likes or engagement. I know, shocking, but it accounts for over half of my feed. There's the issue. The second thing it's going to do is it's going to allow you, and you don't have to be a premium user to do it, to pull your data, pull your analytics out of LinkedIn and plug them in, and then ask it iterative questions like a chatbot. It will provide you a visualization of the Excel spreadsheet that you don't have to manipulate. It will tell you what messages are really most effective with the audience. Like, what are people wanting to hear from me on, and why? And it will make recommendations and draw connections between the pattern of followers, engagements, impressions, and it'll tell you how to engage with your audience in an authentic, meaningful way. There's a test chatbot that's out there right now. It is a beta. So once it gets funded, it'll look a lot more slick. So that's the first thing I would strongly recommend taking a look at.
Wow.
Yeah. And the reason that's created, I mean, I did this more for the users and to present a case study than anything else, because the one thing you want to do is solve problems. That's what software is supposed to do. The problem exists. We all know it's there. What can we do about it? And here's a creative way to solve it. And the second thing I would say is there's several custom GPTs that have been created that, as long as you have a GPT account, you can access them. There are prompt structures that will ask you the questions that you can answer, and then it will say, copy paste this prompt, and that prompt will give you the best answer that the model is capable of giving you, because it is giving you these questions in an order that it understands it needs to have a response to give you the best outcome. So that's a game. I was about to say game changer, but that's canceled. That's a big shift.
Wow.
Yeah. So those tools are on my profile. Got a couple more coming, as well as some healthcare tools, which are a little more boring, but those are the big ones right now.
That's awesome. Okay, so where do we go to find out more about that? Your LinkedIn?
Yep, featured at the top of my profile. I've summarized everything there, and I've also put some case studies in there as well. If anybody needs help with, or I don't know about you, but I always felt dumb asking technical questions when I was in my early career, because I had a lot of hair then, right? But I still got embarrassed because I felt stupid to ask. It's not the same thing. My mission is to support people and understand this technology in a way that helps them and doesn't frustrate them. So please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to provide any resources I can.
That's awesome. Wow. Okay. So for those of you who are listening, you can visit Pete's LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/in/Pete Connor. That's PETECCONNOR.
Yeah.
Or you can email Pete at cpeteconnor with 2 N's at gmail.com, and he will be happy to help you out. I think it's so amazing that you are doing this work to empower people to interact with technology so that they can understand, the amazing powers that it has. Because sometimes it can be overwhelming when you just don't know what it is that you're doing. You don't know the capabilities that you have, the opportunities that you're missing out on, because you're just blinded by frustration of just not being able to properly utilize the tool.
Yeah. Let's find a solution to the problem. I mean, we can talk about it, or we can act on it. I prefer the latter, and look forward to helping anybody that would like to take advantage of it.
Oh, it's so awesome. Wow. This is amazing. Okay. I'm just like soaking in all the amazing things that we talked about. For those of you who didn't hear the beginning or skipped around a little bit, I want to just highlight one quote from today that is unbelievable, which is automation of routine and focus on the meaningful. That is like, I mean, this is a quote that's going on my wall. This is amazing. And the whole episode, really, Pete, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge, expertise, and just enlighten us and bring in a really fresh, positive, breath of fresh air perspective on UX, CX, AI strategy. It's so awesome. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening, tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe and share with anyone that you feel can benefit from it. And of course, visit our new community. The link is in the description below. We have a new community of amazing product pioneers who are passionate about strategic alignment, supporting each other. We have workshops and weekly coaching sessions. It's really awesome. It just started, and it's growing, and it's really amazing. So make sure to check it out. And thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a review. And of course, please be sure to check out our awesome community where you can connect with podcast guests, like-minded professionals, and be surrounded by others excited by your success. Keep pushing for impact and unlocking unstoppable growth. See you in the community.